Hello and a warm welcome to our fortnightly show, The Pulse, that gets you issues impacting the larger society. I'm Neelu Vyas. Let me begin today's program with a little joke which goes as this, and I quote, "This generation's children's marks are like 99, 99.4, 99.5, 99.9. And then you have the parents' reaction, and I quote again, "In our times, we used to get fever like this," unquote. Well, you could simply smile or dismiss this as a stupid joke, but it does reflect the ailments of our education or the examination system. CBSE board exam results were out recently, where if you look at the figure for Class 10 exams, out of 17.6 lakh students who appeared, 2.5 lakh students scored 90% and above. Similarly, Class 12 results continue to defy gravity, with 17,690 students scoring above 90%. Media created a sense of achievement and triumph for those who topped, making them role models. But what it also did was making life hell for those who scored below 90%, who felt ridiculed, their self-confidence shattered. So while we celebrate and congratulate the rising number of 90%ers in our society, we're also asking, what's the option for the students below 90%? How can we bring a sense of balance between our education and examination system? For more on this and much more, joining me now, some brilliant voices. Dr. Nimesh Desai, Professor Psychiatry and Director at the Institute of Human Behavior and Allied Sciences. I welcome him on the program. Next to him is Shiv Khera, author, activist and motivational speaker. I welcome you on the program. Next to him is Professor Chandrabhushan Sharma, Chairman of National Institution of Open Schooling. Next to him is Madhura Pathak. She is Vice Principal, DPS Siddharth Vihar. I welcome you also on the program. And joining us is a very special guest this time, Vandana Sufia Katoch, a parent whose Facebook post became very viral because she celebrated her son's score of 60%. I welcome you on the program, and I welcome these young voices who are joining us on the program. Now, before we actually get into the discussion, I would just want to get a feel of how many of you sitting in the audience here have scored 90%. Just raise your hands. Quite a number. And what about those who have not scored 90% or below? Just 3 of you. Okay. So I'm going to begin by asking you, while we congratulate again, once a very big congratulations to all the 90%ers. We celebrate your achievement. It's not a small feat, but definitely I'm going to begin the show today with the people who've not scored 90%. Just pass on the mic with that girl. I want to know your feeling when you are sitting with a bunch of people who, like most of them, have scored 90%. Do you feel ridiculed? Are you going through any complex? Do you have a feeling which makes you feel small?
No, ma'am, not at all. I'm very happy with my marks, and my parents are also. I didn't expect it that much, but 89% is good, and I'm happy.
Okay, great. 89% is good, and she feels happy. Okay, next to you is also a student who scored below 90%.
Yes, ma'am. I am Ritvik, and I scored 84.4%. But definitely, I do not feel any more ridiculed than her. I am very satisfied with my marks, the way I studied, and I'm really satisfied. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go to Dr. Desai first. This perception which has been created because of the rising number of 90%ers, there is a feeling of, a complex which the students are going through. Their self-esteem is shattered. Does it actually amount to some kind of a trauma as well on the minds of the students?
Oh, it does. I was just thinking that these two young friends here, we are lucky to have them here and they are feeling satisfied. That's wonderful. Unfortunately, those who do not score very well numerically or do not do academically excellence initial careers may not reach these shows, may reach us. You see, there is the counselors, the psychologists in the school, and the psychiatrists and the mental health services. There's certainly a huge phenomenon to this, but then dig a little deeper. The issues are long-term and evolving. The emphasis on success and academic success and quantified success, competition, that's very irrational at times, the sociological issues of how one generation wants to get their dreams fulfilled through the other generation. And then the pressure that we, I think, this generation or the past two generations create on the next two generations. That's the larger social psychological milieu in which we are talking about what we are saying today. Okay. And so it's good that you're discussing this. There needs to be much more of emphasis on celebrating moderate success, celebrating non-success. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. Success is a very relative term and concept.
Okay, so you just heard what Dr. Desai said. Chikera, according to you, what is success? Like when you talk, we'll talk about success in terms of the student's performance, especially in the board exams. How would you look at it?
Well,
your personal experience also.
Well, I'll come to that. Just give me a minute and let me just clarify and qualify. See, check out all over the world, all success stories are stories of great failures. Give me one and I'll share with you what is the failure behind it. One. And success is not measured by how high you go up in life. It is measured by how many times you bounce back when you fall down. And success is not measured, oh, thank you. And success is not measured by how we do as compared to others, but how we do as compared to what we are capable of doing. See, go check out the greatest athletes in the world. They don't compete against others. They always keep bettering their own record. They compete against themselves. Now, a minute, I'll share with you about my own life. Bottom line is, I wasn't a great student in my class. 8th grade, out of 6 and 7 subjects, I failed in all except one. And my principal called me and said, Shiv, you're paying too much attention on one subject. And out of 28 kids, I was number 27 because of 28 was absent. No kidding. My principal used to call my parents and tell my parents, tell them, get this kid out of the school. He's one kid who's going to bring the average of the school. Now, I was bringing the average down. And finally, in my 10th grade, I failed. So I had to repeat my class. I wanted to get out. It was humiliating, but my mother did not let me quit. She said, you messed up. You better sit there. You sit there. And see, most important thing is I learned one thing in my life. Failing does not amount to failure in life. Failing is an event. Failure is a lot bigger thing. See, failing does not amount to failure. So we need to understand and distinguish between the two, and that is really the crucial thing, which is the emotional strength a person needs. Because who would not have an up and down? Haven't you had ups and downs in life? So how do you turn a setback into a comeback? We have to come back. So really it amounts to, in fact, in Australia, we just got a call. We do a lot of corporate training. And now I kick off my program by saying, what I'm doing in the corporates is repair work. But if you prepare them, you won't have to repair them. And where do you prepare them? In schools and colleges. What is preparation? It is your emotional strength, strength.
When Mr. Khera, you talk about, the difference between failing and failure, I really wonder how many parents, because you're talking in context of the students, the parents, the school, colleges, how many of us really understand the difference? And I want to read out this Facebook post of Vandana Katoj, who is there with us in the studio. I will go back to her. But let me just read out as to what she wrote when the results of her son came out. He scored 90%. I just want to read out verbatim as to what she has written on the post. And this post became viral. Let me read out to you. Super proud of you, my boy, who scored a 60% in Class 10 board exams. Yes, it is not a 90. But that doesn't change how I feel, simply because I have seen him struggle with certain subjects almost to the point of giving up and then deciding to give his all in the last month and a half to finally make it through. Here's to you and others like you, fishers asked to climb trees, chart your own course in the big wide ocean, my love, and keep your innate goodness, curiosity, and wisdom alive. And of course, your wicked sense of humor. Such a sweet Facebook post written by Vandana. I just want to come to you now, Vandana, that you have another line which we have not used in this post, and you said that let's shift the needle. And your Facebook post really made that difference, because here there was a sea of people who were just tom-tomming 90%. No offense meant to the 90%ers for sure, but your post really made a difference. So what have you really sent out as a message to the society, to the parents, to the schools?
Well, the intention wasn't to send out the message to the world. It was to really celebrate my child because I was so proud of what he had achieved. You know, I was focusing on his journey. So you know, the comparison wasn't with what his classmates got or the neighbor's son got. It was where he was and how much he worked and where he is now. And I was with him every step of the way. So I've seen that struggle and I've seen this. And so it was a moment of elation for me.
And you were never expecting that your son is going to score like 90% or 95%.
No.
You were.
So I had accepted it, you know. Every child has his strengths, his weaknesses. And my son's strength is not these, you know, getting academic numbers. And that's perfectly fine with me. He has other strengths, which I know as a mother, and which I know that, you know, if he keeps at it, he'll go far. And that is what gave me the assurance that it's okay, you know, whatever the marks are.
But Madhura, you just heard Vandana what she said. Right from class 1 or maybe even at the kindergarten level, you know, there is a certain achievement pressure which is stoked onto the children. You know, they're made to feel as if they are not performing academically, it's like end of the world for them. How do you change this perception? It's like when we are talking in TV programs or sitting in the studios, we do discuss about this. No, let's make that change. But in the classrooms, when the student has to go through those moments, it's very difficult for that child to overcome that kind of a change. How do you really explain that?
It's not that complicated. It's very simple. Let us go back to our basics. As we are progressing, we are losing out on our basics. It's very important. There are 6 aspects that I really, in this beautiful conversation, I want to stress upon. 3 are to do with yourself, and other 3 are to do with others. The first 3 are what you think, what is your thought process, which gets converted into your speech and then into actions. So this begins right from the kindergarten. Managing yourselves, very important for all the students who are gathered over here. Other 3, they impact the kind of 3 aspects that you have worked upon yourself are going to have impact on the other 3. That is, what you do to this thought process, your speech, action, which gets converted into the tasks. The tasks that further get converted into what you contribute towards the society and to the mother nature. So I think very first thing is let us have the attitude of gratitude. Every teacher who enters a classroom should be grateful to be a teacher first. And the moment at that primary level, pre-primary years of education, when you start training the children, it's important for the children to understand this. And that connection has to be built up. And then we have the equipped processes like counselors and other things falling in place.
What is your opinion, sir, about this? Because the children do undergo a lot of pressure.
Yes.
It's very easy to talk and you know discuss, but when the children have to undergo that kind of a pressure, how do they really ward off that?
See, what are we discussing and what are we celebrating in a country of 1.3 billion? Why are we celebrating only a few? We have not really sung the stories of those who are real achievers. Mary Kom, she got a gold medal for India. And we only celebrate her for the gold medal she got. But we never talk of the academic achievement that she had. She had to give up her regular education because she had to work on her sports. She did it through non-formal education, open schooling, and she has passed her 12th, so we don't celebrate her academic achievement. I think what we need to discuss is parental education. We have all got into that rut. We may be discussing it here. When we go back and my son has not got 90%, I'll ask him, you couldn't get it, right? So let's not be hypocrite. Let's work on real things. My take on it would be, as an educationist and a policy planner, what have we done with school education all these 70 years? You have a University Grants Commission which plans higher education. You don't have a school education commission for 70 years. Who plans? Nobody plans. All those who know nothing about education, they plan education and they have planned like this. We don't have a counselor in school in 70 years. Only recently we have taken a decision that there would be a counselor in every Kendriya Vidyalaya and Navodaya Vidyalaya. Why did we not have one? Telangana declares its result, 3.5 lakh students failed, 19 suicides in a week. As chairman of the National Institute of Open Schooling, when I heard about it, I announced, come and write your exam in the paper you have failed. That should be the flexibility. A child goes to the exam, writes an exam and is not happy. Oh, I couldn't do well. Why should he or she not get a chance just tomorrow to rewrite your exam? We have done it.
What you're saying has a lot of merit. There are a lot of failures in the system.
There's no failure. Please don't use the word.
I'm talking about the...
Children don't feel, systems fail. Our system of education
No, that's what I'm
has failed.
saying. I was just coming to that fact that there are certain deficiencies in the system.
Systemic
But we always
deficiencies.
try and make the children feel, that they have failed in life. The parents, as you said, are mostly hypocrites. They would not admit that, they are living in that old world where they don't want to come along. I just want to come to the students as to what kind of pressures do you actually go through? Especially I want to come to the 90 percenters. Here we have a topper, Vikramaditya, sitting in the front row. When you're actually studying your success story, what is the kind of pressure which is always there in your mind? You have a parental pressure, you have a peer pressure as to what the society is going to say. What are the pressures on your mind?
I had no parental pressure at all. So my mom and dad, they were like, do whatever you want, we don't care. Just do your best. So for what I started, when I started preparing for my boards, I started only 2 weeks before the boards were supposed to start. So when I started, my competition wasn't with my peers, or it was basically with myself and with the board paper. So the board paper highlights a 80 mark maximum marks. So I competed with those marks, not with my friends' marks and my previous marks.
Okay, that's an important aspect you've dwelt on. Yes, there's another student.
My parents didn't pressure me, but when I was in 9th, I scored 85% and I scored 97.6 in 10th board exams. When I scored 85% in 9th, I thought I could do much better in 10th. So I worked hard, and this is where
Okay. But you were never pressured by your parents or your
they
friends?
were really cool about do whatever you want.
But how many of us are really lucky in the student community? Nobody has undergone any kind of pressure from the parents? None of you? Okay, so let me ask a real picture. Let me go to Dr. Desai, because this is really not the real picture.
Don't forget, we are in front of a TV camera. And their parents might well be watching the program later.
That's where the reality is, huh?
But I really want to go
Parental
back
pressure is not direct.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Desai.
I want to go back to a couple of points that Dr. Sharma made. I think look and read. One, there is that ambivalence that we all carry about important social, psychological issues. All societies carry that. Societies in South Asia carry that more. And as we are struggling with the transitional society that we are, obviously the ambivalence is so much more. He was very candid about it, and it's very appreciated. The second is that the changes in the education system that I'm sure he is getting around to are far too slow and yet too late. We need to really pick those up. The purpose of education really can't be the degree or the marks or the academic quantification. Again, I mean, we will all agree about that here. But as you said and Dr. Sharma said, when we go out to our societies and our families, will perhaps not follow that even partly, forgetfully.
But another thing, Dr. Desai, which I really want to ask you, and again in front of the key, I'll come to you, sir, is something that, when you look at the home, and where the parents start tutoring their children, knowingly or unknowingly, there is a conversation at home where you start comparing your child with another child. ऐसा क्या होगा कि तुम उससे अच्छा करो? This is the real feeling which is often discussed in the families.
See, the thing is,
the child is being compared with his relatives, with his friends or someone else.
Must also say this, must also flag this. As our young friend said, and Mr. Kira, I'm sure will agree, he knows better than all of us put together. One's performance or non-success or lack of it can be a huge motivating factor. So that while, like she said, she scored only 85 in Standard 8 and then went on to 97. So let's not also forget the whole issue of motivation from self, motivation by people around, parents. The difficulty is how do you walk that thin line of motivating, supporting, and yet not being critical either of lack of effort or of lack of success, so to say. Now, that's the difficult part, and that's where the ambivalence works out. I must also say that the previous generations, I do think it's very convenient. Like you started with a joke. I mean, I'm sure we have all heard that in English or Hindi or in some other vernacular, how a father picks up a mark sheet and, admonishes the young kid till they discover that actually mark sheet belonged to the father when he was in school. You know? So like in every other thing, I do believe that if only the next generation knew what we all did and what we all went through, you know, thankfully they don't. But really, so the issues are the societal milieu, that's to success and concrete measures of success oriented, the ambivalence that society carries, as Dr. Sharma said, that we all carry within ourselves. Third, that thin line, to repeat myself, to motivate youngsters and yet not let that become the central point of life.
Yes. I'll go to you. Yes. Just pass on the mic to him. You wanted to say something. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to thank the opportunity for all of us to come here and discuss about this issue. And I also congratulate all these achievers sitting here with us. Sir, to Mr. Desai's point, the counselor concept is still not that widely accepted in our society. I mean, as in not as a parent, but as an overall society. So vis-a-vis your thought about a counselor versus a psychiatrist, I mean, people still, you know, kind of shy away from this fact that, okay, I need to reach out to a counselor to discuss about something which is, you know, which has to be addressed. And also to Dr. Sharma's point, sir, 1-2 steps if something that is given a choice to you, and if you have that option, what are 1-2 action points that you would like to make and implement to make this all easier for all of us to?
Okay, so let's go one by one. Dr. Desai?
I completely, if I get you right, I completely agree. One of the many books that I have still to write and I haven't written, maybe Mr. Khera will help me do that, is Psychiatrists Keep Away. You do not need highly qualified psychiatrists and clinical psychologists for these day-to-day issues of adjustment and living life. What you need at best is counselors, even better, peer volunteers, your own friends, your own seniors who can help. So let's be sure, we are not talking about high-tech mental health professionalism in the field of education. We are talking about application of principles of psychology and behavioral science and social science, which I'm sure Dr. Sharma is doing, to the field of education. If I might continue with that, like I said earlier, see, we'll have to be very clear what the purpose of education is. That degree or the marks cannot, it is important. And again, let's not be denying even in this studio in this 1 hour. It's important and very important. But it's not the end of life, it's not critical. You know, that's the important message to give. A whole lot of emphasis on extracurricular activities, on what's called life skills education. Are we preparing people not just to be a good citizen, but to be an average normal human being? If ever there is that concept of average normal human being. And as Mr. Khera said, failing, you know, taking that in your stride. I must say, we keep discussing this in many forums, including educational forums. For youngsters in the 10th standard, this is possibly their first test of facing success or failing. I agree with him, don't call it failure. If we handle that well as a society, as a family, for that child will learn to handle the failing instances which might happen in future. And if we don't handle it well, that's what leads to the suicide behavior and a whole lot of long-term maladjustments. I'm with Dr. Sharma when he says, when I read the Telangana thing, I was very upset too. I mean, that's a shame for the society. Official issues.
And it's a glitch. It's a
yes,
mistake on the part of the board.
Absolutely.
It's a mistake on the part of the board that they messed up with the results and 19 suicides in 1 week. Who will compensate for it?
But Mr. Khera, the larger question is that, you know, as you initially also said, that the parents need to be tutored, and he also mentioned the same thing. How do you really tell the parents that academic excellence, academic achievement is not the only thing? I mean, it's hard for the parents also to digest because there are no options. If your child doesn't get into the A list of universities or maybe the college, everybody sitting here would want a college number, a college in the Delhi University. And supposing if your marks are not there, even the 90%, the people who have scored 90%, they are also the ones who don't merit for the DU colleges. So what happens to those people?
Neelu, I think 2 very important points came and very eloquently brought out by Dr. Desai and Dr. Sharma. He said on the systematic failure, and Dr. Desai brought up, let us not undermine that we don't need to get certain grades, and which means is all pressure bad? I mean, I heard, oh, I have no pressure. What do you mean you have no pressure? Are your parents indifferent? I mean, have you gotten to a point where your parents don't care?
Vikramaditya, you want to counter what
understand that.
Mr. Khera is saying?
I mean, I don't care what you do. No, you see, those are non-caring parents, which is a bigger problem. And today, there is a breed of those parents also. Today's parents are scared of their kids.
Yeah.
They are afraid to say no to their kids.
Very, very important point.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I just
I'll
want
come
to
to
bring
you,
a point here. Can an athlete perform without pressure? Oh, come on. They can't. You think the guy goes into the Olympics, they are going to be able to perform without pressure? So all pressure is not bad. In fact, pressure makes you perform. As Dr. Desai very well said, failure could be a motivating factor to you. Okay, that's one. And keep in mind one thing. See, whenever there are benchmarks, and there are universal benchmarks. It's not yours and mine. The universal benchmark. See, when people do not meet a benchmark, we can do two things. Either increase effort or lower the benchmark. And people who are quitters, they lower the benchmark. But people who are performers, they increase the effort. Are you with me?
Yes, of
so
course.
this is the way to do it. Absolutely. You increase the effort. So as he rightly said, you don't undermine that. And you can't, all right, you do not penalize them. At the same time, how can you celebrate that? So that means all people who keep failing in life, you keep celebrating them. So what are you doing? You are actually promoting failures. So I think this has gone the other side. It has really, I think the point brought out by these two people, they are so wonderful. Systematic failure is so crucial, and that is true. And how well said on the other side. So we need to understand, I think, point well taken.
I'll come to you, Dr. Desai, in a moment. I want some more students who've scored 90% to come up really about what they feel about the parental pressure, the peer pressure, and then I go to Dr. Desai.
I'm Priyal. I scored 96%. And anxiety attacks, panic attacks, depression, it's so common nowadays. And it's shocking that 6 students commit suicide every day. Like, that's how depressing our situation is right now. Still, the importance of mental health, the position of mental health is so alienated in our Indian society. We don't, like parents say that it's all in your head. Depression isn't a real thing. But like depression, a depressed person's brain and a normal person's brain is physically different.
Okay,
So how
being a student, can I ask what really depresses you when you are into your exam mode, when you have to give your examinations? What really depresses you? I want some more students to talk.
What depresses me is that the anxiety that will I get the marks I expect?
Will I get the marks?
Exactly, and how the checker will check my paper, how they will perceive me. Like, will they give me marks for what I've written? Because I have gave my best.
Okay.
Right?
I want more students to talk.
I just want to add to Priyal that one more thing that depresses many students is that suppose he or she is getting regular good marks in every test. But once due to several situations and things, he is not able to get good marks. So that things also depresses him or her. Because I'm not getting good marks now, I have started failing and all. That's one of the main situations where he gets depressed.
Okay. One more student? Yes.
Ma'am, just before the exam, there's a sort of helplessness over the students, some of them. Actually, we prepare for a particular exam the whole year, but sometimes we realize that our preparation is not that much, or the competition is cutthroat. Really, it's too high sometimes that a complete helplessness comes over our brain, and many a times, even after preparing so well for the exam, we score much less than what we could have if we had a very positive attitude.
Okay. So anxiety, helplessness, but what about feeling, that what will my relatives say or what will my friends say if I don't score well? How much of that feeling weighs on your mind? Just pass on the mic, please. Yes.
One thing I want to say is that sometimes it's like, what if my hard work fails? I'm doing my hard work, I'm putting my best. What if my hard work fails? I'm not attending parties. Some relatives are saying that he's studying this much and that much. What if I'm not able to score 90%? Then they will say that you were not attending these parties and you're not able to score that much, that you were doing so much of hard work and you're not getting that much marks. So that's the most important point that I felt.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Desai.
A couple of points. First of all, like Mr. Khera and Dr. Sharma have been saying, I think we need to recognize, and I'll draw from the experiences in the field of disability and other such fields. I think we need to get that into our day-to-day lives. Not celebrate failure, I completely agree, but celebrate the diversity of human existence.
Right.
There are people who can and do score 90 or 95%. There are people who score 60 or 65 or 70% on a test. So celebrate the diversity of human existence. And disability sector shows us that very well by now. The second issue I realized from what these young people have been saying is that somewhere, and Dr. Sharma might correct me here, but the field of psychology and behavioral sciences has moved on in the last 100 years from IQ to EQ to SQ, from intelligence quotient to emotional quotient to social quotient. And somewhere we have not got that to incorporated in our education system or in preparing young people about being emotionally stable, being socially appropriate.
Absolutely.
But I want to go back to what Priya said, and I really do hear this 2 or 3 young people and their concerns. Like I said earlier, the routine issues of growing up, large majority of the people do not need psychiatrists and experts in clinical psychology. Be sure of that. What we need to do is work with people like Dr. Sharma and the principal ma'am here to get the expertise of mental health to the educational systems and see if that can be implemented.
Right.
At the same time, there's another side to the coin. Very briefly, the scientific fact is that many major mental disorders, schizophrenia, unipolar depression, bipolar depression, leading to suicide and anxiety issues, have 2 major peaks in life course. One is between 15 to 25, and the second is around 45 or 50 or 50 plus. And so the scientific fact also is that, like you were saying, Priya, very well, I mean, that was actually ingenious, that the brain is functioning differently. So if a young boy or a girl is prone to genetically unipolar or bipolar depression, and the issues of examination or performance might just be the proverbial last straw on the camel's back, we should not also be missing out on that. We need to identify people who are more at risk of having severe mental health problems, get them to the specialists, but get the majority being held by the counselors. Now, it's not too impossible. It's a little delicate, but that's what we need to do. Absolutely. And so I recognize what you are saying about the issues of mental health. But you don't need psychiatrists everywhere. I do believe in a brief sentence to say that the Americans have done that. With all respect to the society there, pluses and minuses, they have over-psychiatricized the society. Let's not do that. And link that to what I said earlier. Let's celebrate the diversity. Let's celebrate the diversity in being normal.
Absolutely.
And yet identify people who need extra help.
In fact, you made a very important point here. There were times, Dr. Sharma, I'll come to you. There were olden times when you look at our parents talking about a good second division, a third division, distinction, concepts like a 75%, oh, my son and daughter, they've got a distinction. I've scored like 75 in maths or maybe in English, then they would say, oh, my daughter has done so well. Where are those concepts? Have they disappeared completely? Don't they hold relevance? I mean, or they don't have any place in today's times?
I think very good debate. Who is planning education and why are we in this rut? We have academic performance indicators for the schools, and every principal of a school is chased to increase academic performance.
Right.
So the principal is just not bothered, within quote, they are bothered, they are mothers, they are parents of children. Academic performance must improve this year from last year. So whatever you have to do, get after the life of children, but improve the grades. We must get better marks this year. So what did you do? Your principal's probation will not be confirmed if the API has not increased.
Now, let me
No,
just
so wait a
interrupt you
minute.
here.
There are 2 things. I was asked 2 questions. I'm answering that. The principal gets after the life of teachers. Do whatever you want. Call the children on Saturdays, Sundays, and they must get better marks than the last year so that, again within quote, my probation is confirmed, I get a promotion, teachers are doing Are we really worried about children? Are we really worried about children? No. Second, so in this academic performance, we have a girl who got a gold medal on the global platform in Paralympics. The school doesn't get any credit for that. The principal tells me, Professor Sharma, how do I manage that time? Because we won't get any credit for that. The child goes and gets a gold medal. We are not celebrating that child. The principal says, please don't waste my time. If my child gets 2% extra, my school's performance will increase. We must change that. I'm happy, I must say. I must say and give the credit to the chairperson CBSE, Anita Karwal. She has completely transformed CBSE. You will see the results from next year.
Now let me hear Madhura on this. Putting pressure on the teachers and then it keeps percolating onto the children. How do you really explain that?
A little bit I differ with you, sir. Due respect to what you said just now. That's the reason I am heavily into training programs, in-house training for my teacher faculty. I conduct motivational workshops just to ease out this pressure between the children and the teachers. That's the reason I spoke about the 6 aspects. The journey between the classroom to the counselor's room, if you look at it, it's a very short corridor journey, but actually it takes a hell lot of courage for the child to reach the counselor's room. It's not that easy. So motivating a teacher to be a buddy teacher is what is the mission that I have taken over on my shoulders personally, so that every child is equipped emotionally. When you talk about social quotient, emotional quotient, it has to be done categorically from this level. That is the highest level.
Let me just get in some parents. I'll come to you.
Yes.
Vandana, what has been your experience with your child? Like she's talking about a concept of a buddy teacher. Are teachers really fulfilling that role of being a buddy to the student, being a friend, so that they can come and share any and everything with the teacher? What has been your experience?
So my eldest son had passed out of that school. And when my younger one, was, and I could see that, his struggle with academics happening, I tried my best to shift him to a school where it was more about the child's overall growth. And
you felt the difference?
I felt the difference, yes. And there was a mentor-mentee system, and he could go out and share. There were little goals given which he had to attain, and all of that really helped. But the point is that the CBSE never went away. The academic pressure stayed. And there was little that the school could, do there.
Okay. Some more parents would want to talk? Yes, ma'am. You want to talk? You don't want to?
Can I come in there? I wanted to say that although the principal ma'am, as she said, differed with Dr. Sharma, I don't actually see a difference. For me, it's this. What Dr. Sharma painted is a larger social reality. Because of that social reality, principals and schools progressive like her are bringing in the humanitarian and the larger component. What you are doing, to me, only justifies the need for it and the reality of what Dr. Sharma brought out. Because there is that problem of excessive pathological emphasis in the society on efficiency and excellence. Yes. You are now bringing in the other aspect.
Yes.
So for me, both are real and both are just juxtaposing each other, truly.
So, yes, Mr. Kera?
Neelu, I just want to bring a point here. Look, especially that you brought in the point of the Telangana suicides and others. You look at it, and Dr. Desai brought the point of emotional intelligence and strength. So the social part also. Look at these IITians, greatest IQ out of maybe 20, 30 lakhs, they take only what, 10, 20,000 students every year. And who has the highest suicide? Also, one of the highest suicide is so great IQs. But one thing I just want to mention here, and that holds true in any suicide, including the farmer suicide, people say it's a coward's way, but my point is, when does a person take a decision to commit suicide? 2 things. When they feel totally hopeless and when they feel totally helpless. 2 elements, hopeless and helpless. There is nothing, it's a very drastic step. How can a person take a call that I'm going to commit suicide? 2 things are crucial when they feel totally hopeless and helpless. That is the time they commit suicide. And you know what's missing at that point is 2 elements. One is emotional strength. See, it is really the emotional strength. And the other is, when we talk to the social part, it is not only India, by the way, it's globally true that socially people are feeling insecure all over the world, by the way. And I've been there in US, I live in US, and Dr. Desai brought in over-psychiatrize the society. Are you aware that there are psychiatrists for dogs in US? And they suggest them get a companion. Now there are 2 depressed dogs there. I mean, it is funny as you go along, but eventually we need to bring that emotional strength into the people, and insecurity, not only the kids. People as adults, we are also feeling insecure with the uncertainty that is going all over the world.
Absolutely.
So that is, and to overcome that insecurity, the only one way is emotional strength. There is no other. Intellectual strength will not do the job. We need to have emotional strength.
You spoke about a very important point, and one term which Dr. Desai used in the beginning of the show was that we need to celebrate the moderate success, along with the emotional success, which emotional strength, which Shiv Khera is talking about. How many of us would really, as a parent, have the courage to do what Vandana has done? Can you really put out on the Facebook and say that, look, my son or daughter has got a 40% marks, but I don't care because he's excelling in other streams? I want more parents to talk about this. Pass on the mic, please. Yes.
Yes, of course, Mrs. Katoch, and you are a role model, I would say, for all the parents. And thank you for doing this. And not only for your child, but for all of us also. Maybe it's our voice, what she's portrayed. And I really congratulate and really thank you for all the efforts.
Let's have a big round of applause for Vandana.
And for all those parents, I mean, this should not be something, and to bring this, Mr. Desai just pointed out, for the suicide thing, and it's all our children who bear all this. I mean, very honestly, I would say, how many parents they commit suicide because my child couldn't perform. It's the child who has to bear, who has to do all this. I mean, he's failing, he's not accepted by the society. He's been seen as something like, you've done a crime that you're not able to score 90%. And the child at the age of 15, 14, is thinking about these things. What are we doing to the society?
Sir, may I?
Yes, sir.
You see, it's not that he's not being accepted by society. What's missing is self-acceptance, sir.
Self-acceptance is missing.
It is not acceptance by society. If you can't accept yourself, and then who cares? So what is missing, sir? It is self-acceptance, which is more important than anything else. So I would put greater emphasis on self-development rather than skill development, which is so crucial.
I want more students to talk about the problems which you all are facing when it comes to handling pressure. Of course, I'm not going into, students committing suicide. Of course, we have discussed about what happened in Telangana. But what are the actual pressures which you actually go about? Yes, I want some more students to talk about. Someone who's not spoken earlier, yes.
Hi, I'm Dhanesh. If I will talk about pressure, if I combine all the point of every student who are sitting here, I would say insecurity and fear is the important factor that builds up pressure. The very first time when I entered in 11th, I was shown the dark side of the board's examination. I was always feared that एग्ज़ाम बहुत टफ होते हैं, बहुत कट थ्रोट कॉम्पिटिशन है, अच्छे से नहीं पढ़ोगे मार्क्स नहीं आएंगे. फ्रॉम द वेरी फर्स्ट डे यू नीड टू स्टडी अराउंड 8 hours. So that kind of fear builds pressure inside me. Okay. And I would say the marks that you score really depends on the last 2 months or 3 months you study. And according to me, in our education system, we are filling the students in one bag. And that's what, and due to which, we can say, take an example, if we blow air in a balloon, at a point of time, it will burst. So we should, instead of just filling air in one balloon, we should distribute it into different balloons. So I think we need to diversify the fields where student could actually work, and we should encourage students not just to work on their academics, but rather they should work in their experience.
So the focus should be more on innovation and creativity rather than going into the rote learning. Vikramaditya, I want to come to you because you did a course at Stanford, and what has gone wrong with the Indian education system? Apparently, you've got a slice of it. I want to really hear you on what your experience has been.
I would like to connect this with the pressure point. So, considering the pressure point, as Sir said, so in India, I believe the parental pressure is more on the result, and they're not expecting, they're not valuing the hard work as much as they're valuing the result. So for in my case, my parents value my hard work. So they know that I'm constantly pushing myself beyond my limits. So I cannot sit idle. So that's why I applied to Stanford the previous year, and I got in for a business and investment program. So I haven't taken any economic courses or anything, but investment, I was passionate about it, so I attended the program. So I learned more about it. If you talk about the American system of education, especially in universities, it's more involved. So, for example, my teacher, we sat together at lunch, we discussed about our normal lives, about the future, and what she has done in her past. And that's what my parents value more than my marks. But I just wanted, because marks are a gateway to your college, we cannot reject that fact. And since I want to get into a good college, I pushed myself beyond my limits. I wanted to get good marks. I believe I did. And I'm still constantly pushing myself. And this year, I'm again going to Yale University for a program for applied sciences engineering.
Lovely. I have two quick questions for Professor Sharma and Madhura. It's been years I've been hearing that, we are into the rote learning system. When are we going to emphasize too much on innovation, on the creativity, on what the more emphasis on extracurricular activities? But it doesn't happen that way.
No,
it sounds very theoretical, but it's actually not happening.
I'm very sorry we don't discuss our policies on public platforms, but good that you have raised that question. Again, I will celebrate the chairperson CBSE, Anita Karwal. She has taken great decisions this year. Every school must have a sports period every day, and they have to report to the CBSE.
Yes.
Every school must have co-curricular activities. That has been made a must. So what we did in last 30-40 years was we created a school where there was no playground. She has made it compulsory again, and you will see so many changes next year. In fact, you should discuss all the changes that have been brought about CBSE. This year, you'll see the changes in the coming months. 1, 2. Let us change the whole process of evaluation of schools. Have you ever seen an advertisement saying, we had a child who got a gold medal for India. We had a child in our school who got a state gold medal or who has played hockey for our school. We only say such and such got into IIT or 89% or 90%. We have to change the whole argument. We have to change the narrative. And then the schools would be selected because they have a child who got a gold medal for sports, or we have 20 million hearing impaired in this country and not one school admits them. We don't have a sign language expert. What have we been doing in all these years? You'll be happy to know our Minister Javadekar ji has launched a whole channel for the hearing impaired in this country. We are imparting curriculum in this. We need to bring changes. We are 18% of the world population and we have just one formula for assessing schools. Second, I will definitely say nobody who is not connected with education, who has not been in the school, should not be on the school management committee. Okay. You have officers, army officers, police officers managing schools, and they are making a mess of schools. All the army's public schools, they are managed by army officers who know nothing about education. Look at the public schools otherwise. Nobody who has not been, in fact, principals I celebrate always. They must decide on the policies of school, and they are nowhere. Have you ever seen a school principal deciding on the policy she would like to have for her school? No. That is why we are having all this.
Okay, so Madhura, 3 hours of examination time which children sit and write the exam. Is that 3 hour going, are those 3 hours going to decide the fate of the student? What do you see really coming in future?
To answer this question in a very simplistic form again, I like to answer in a very simple manner. Where is the holistic word going? Where is it vanished in this complete system? We talk of 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, periodic assessment, then half yearly, then the final assessments. What I want to emphasize over here is 3 hours cannot judge the performance of a child. As Sir rightly brought out, you have to pick up the strings and walk ahead in your life. So definitely 3 hours is not enough if a child has to perform well, or 2 hours is enough for a child who is already prepared well and confident. So keeping aside all these things, the holistic word is only remaining as an English language word nowadays. There is a need of the hour. We come to this holistic word in the real sense. So coming back to the holistic approach is making every teacher, every child, every parent, all the stakeholders, bring them on one page, conduct parenting workshops, make them understand the need of the hour, And then I feel this 3 hours will be good enough for every child.
Well said.
Just
Yes.
one point to add.
Yes, sir.
We have in the National Institute of Open Schooling on-demand exam. You decide your date, you decide your place of exam, and you decide the paper that you would like to write anytime in your lifetime.
But will the schools give that flexibility?
We have
the
given
schools
that.
give that
The board has
flexibility?
given that flexibility. If you have done your 12th or you have, within quote, failed CBSE today, the results have come out, come to the NIOS and write your exam for the paper that you have been said to be failed.
Okay.
Right? You write once, you write twice, you write thrice, and you can choose which result would you like to have.
Okay.
So we must have
This
flexibility.
looks
in
like a
exam.
ray of hope. Yes, Vandana?
I really feel that this entire pressure, and of course it's systemic, and that will, it's great that, some changes are happening. I'm only talking to the parents, and as a parent, I know that it all begins with us.
Okay.
If we're in a place where we're content and we're fulfilled and we're happy and we're doing other things, we're going to send that vibe to our child, and we're going to free him of this pressure. What's happening is that the child gets this message, you may not say it, but that if I get my marks, my mama's going to be happy. So that child is under that pressure, and we've somehow given him that vibe. Some mothers say it overtly, some don't say it overtly. So the child is under the pressure to make mama happy. But if mama's happy already, then that child is free, and then it starts from a positive sort of a space for the child to perform, to excel himself, and not to make someone happy or to to do it for the world.
Very
It's for
important point.
himself.
Yes. Mr. Kera?
I just want to bring 3 points, and probably I'd like to conclude on that. I mean, on my side, as far as I'm concerned. One is that I've heard many parents, in fact, we are coming up with a program on positive parenting. Many parents take great pride. I'm a friend to my kids. I'm a friend to my kids. I'm a friend to my kids. Great. You see, I have grandchildren. I have grandsons. And then, you see, today, kids they have enough friends. They need parents. Yeah. They do need parents. And then that is crucial. So you could be a friendly parent, but they need parent. And parenting has its own place, and you can't take pride. I'm only a friend, and that's the end of it. Yeah. So that is one part. Second, as Dr. Sharma mentioned, there is a huge gap on the system side, which is demand and supply. When people get lower grades, they said, what next? I can't get any admission. I have nothing there. Where do I go? My life is over. So the demand and supply of our schools and colleges was the driving force at one time for people who couldn't afford anything beyond. So I think the system part has to be improved. And the third crucial reason why anything goes wrong is a self-esteem issue and nothing else. And just like to close with one thing, 5,000% of your problems are self-esteem, all emotional, eventually comes down to, I've shared in my new book, which was launched last year, that there was a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest in Europe once. And Charlie Chaplin was passing by and he saw a big hoarding there. And he just out of inquisitiveness decided to participate. And he participated in the contest and never told anybody. He came 7th. He lost. And inside himself, he kept saying, fake wins and the real lost. But you know something? He said, I never disclosed it to anybody. I knew who was the real one anyway. Nobody knew. I knew who was the real one. And he said, I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. You know what? This is self-acceptance. And what is it? This is your self-esteem. You don't take pride in non-performance. But it didn't matter. He said, I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. You know something? I am not qualified as a psychiatrist, but what my 45 years of research I have done, everything eventually comes down to your self-esteem, emotional strength, and that's the end of it, really.
Dr. Desai, your closing thoughts to the program?
While celebrating and endorsing what Mr. Khera said, might I just bring out the other nuance? Charlie Chaplin, if I might say, had that comfort and sense of security after he had already proven himself to himself and to the world. See, like our young friend said, for a 15 or 16 or 17-year-old boy or a girl, he or she hasn't had that chance yet. And so the sense of insecurity that someone spoke about, the fear of failure, and much worse, related to the fear of failure is the fear of rejection. That again we all spoke about. Being rejected by self, being rejected by family. That is what operates. And so can we somehow, and I've been thinking here and sitting here and thinking, maybe I'm being idealist, but I don't think so. Obviously, I wouldn't think so, right? But what Vanna wrote in that post and what you endorse so well, if a parent can feel and express that, is it impossible for an educational system or a nation or a society to feel the same? Celebrate whatever the boy or the girl achieves.
Absolutely.
Accept diversity, not just numerical strength. And as these two colleagues are saying, the system has begun to do that. Your concern as a citizen, as a parent, might be that it's happening too slow, like I said. But there again, I'd go back to like to go back to history. The 500 years of colonialism, especially the Macaulay, system of education, will take some effort and time to undo. I do think that what I am dreaming of, Vanna's code becoming the official position of the education system and the nation, is already happening, as Sharmaji said. It will happen. It will happen. It will take time.
In fact, sorry, may I just add
Please.
something?
Vandana, we're really running short of time. But as Dr. Desai has very well put, that we need to celebrate the moderate success with a lot of emotional strength, and we'll also have to allow the system to evolve as it does in any transitional society. And as the famous quote says, I think it's possible for an ordinary person to choose to be an extraordinary person. So there's no need to feel let down, even if you have not scored 90% and above. Maybe you are destined to do things which are bigger, but at the same time, a very big congratulations to all the 90%ers and also the others who are sitting. No discrimination between them. And a very big thank you to all our guests, Dr. Desai, Mr. Khera, Professor Sharma, Madhura, and Vandana. It was lovely having you on the program. And a big round of applause for you students. You can give us your feedback on this edition of The Pulse. Write to us on our Facebook page. Goodbye, and thanks for your time.